The stars twinkled peacefully in the night sky above New York City. John Smith, a regular guy working a 9-to-5 job, looked up at them as he walked home from the subway. He had no idea that, far beyond those stars, something was coming. Something that would change everything. In the depths of space, a massive fleet of alien ships approached Earth. These were the proud warriors of the Sarlaxian Empire, a race that had conquered countless worlds across the galaxy. Their ships were sleek and powerful, bristling with weapons that could turn planets to dust. Admiral Zork, the leader of the Sarlaxian fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was tall and muscular, with blue skin and 4 arms. Zork looked at the blue and green planet on his view screen and smiled. His sharp teeth glinted in the ship's light. "Another primitive world for us to conquer," Zork said to his second-in-command. "These humans won't know what hit them." The Sarlaxians were very proud of their advanced technology and physical abilities. They could lift 10 times their body weight and run faster than any Earth animal. Their minds were quick, and their bodies were tough. They thought they were the perfect warriors. As the alien fleet got closer to Earth, they started to study the planet and its people. They watched TV shows, listened to radio signals, and looked at websites. The more they saw, the more they laughed. "Look at these humans," one Sarlaxian soldier said to another. "They're so weak and small. They can barely lift 100 pounds. The aliens saw humans struggling with simple tasks like moving furniture or running marathons. They didn't understand that these things were hard because of Earth's gravity. The Sarlaxians came from a planet with much less gravity, so everything was easy for them there. Admiral Zork called a meeting with his top officers. They gathered around a large table, looking at holograms of Earth and its people. "Our plan is simple," Zork said. "We'll land our ships in major cities around the world. Our soldiers will show their strength, and the humans will surrender immediately. They'll be too scared to fight back." The other officers nodded and grinned. They all thought it would be an easy victory. Meanwhile, on Earth, things were about to get crazy. In a secret underground base in Washington, D.C., General Sarah Johnson of the United States Air Force was having a very bad day. "Sir, you need to see this," a young officer said, rushing into her office. General Johnson followed him to a room full of screens and computers. On the largest screen, she saw something that made her heart skip a beat. A massive group of objects was approaching Earth, moving faster than anything humans had ever built. "Are those?" she started to ask. "Yes, sir," the officer replied. "We believe they're alien ships." General Johnson took a deep breath. She had trained for many things in her career, but this was not one of them. She picked up a secure phone and dialed a number she hoped she'd never have to use. "Mr. President," she said when the call was answered, "we have a situation." Within hours, governments around the world were in emergency meetings. The news hadn't been made public yet, but world leaders knew they had to prepare for anything. In New York, John Smith was still clueless about what was coming. He went to bed that night thinking about his plans for the weekend. But as he slept, the Sarlaxian ships entered Earth's orbit. Admiral Zork looked down at the planet, full of confidence. "Begin the invasion," he ordered. Little did he know, Earth had a surprise waiting for him and his warriors, a surprise called gravity. The Sarlaxians were about to learn a hard lesson. Never underestimate those you think are weaker than you. As the first light of dawn broke over New York City, John Smith's alarm went off. He hit the snooze button, not knowing that when he finally got up, the world would be a very different place. The stage was set. Humanity was about to face its greatest challenge, and the aliens were about to face theirs. The morning sun had just started to peek over the horizon when the first Sarlaxian ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Their massive vessels cast long shadows over the cities below, blocking out the early light. In New York City, John Smith was jolted awake by the sound of car alarms and screaming. He rushed to his window and froze in shock. A gigantic spaceship hovered over the city, its metal surface gleaming in the sunlight. This can't be real, John whispered to himself, rubbing his eyes in disbelief. But it was very real, and it was happening all over the world. In the White House, President Emma Rodriguez watched the live feeds from various cities with a grim expression. "General Johnson," she said, turning to the Air Force leader, "what are our options?" Before General Johnson could answer, the screens lit up with a new image. It was Admiral Zork, his blue face filling the display. "People of Earth," Zork's voice boomed, translated into every language simultaneously. "We are the Sarlaxian Empire. Your planet is now under our control. Resist, and you will be crushed." As Zork spoke, the bottom of each alien ship opened. Thousands of Sarlaxian soldiers began to descend towards the ground, using personal flight devices that looked like high-tech jetpacks. Admiral Zork, leading the invasion in New York, was the first to land. He expected to touch down gracefully in Times Square, ready to demonstrate his species' superiority. Instead, he crashed into the pavement with a loud thud, leaving a small crater. "What in the name of Sarlax?" Zork groaned, struggling to his feet. He felt incredibly heavy, as if his body was made of lead. All around him, other Sarlaxian soldiers were having similar problems. Some couldn't even stand up. Their advanced weapons, designed to be light and easy to use, now felt impossibly heavy in their hands. John Smith, who had made his way to Times Square along with a crowd of curious and terrified New Yorkers, watched in amazement as the aliens struggled. "They can't handle the gravity," a voice next to John said. He turned to see a woman in a lab coat, Dr. Emily Chen, a physicist who worked at a nearby university. Their bodies must be adapted to a much lighter gravitational pull. As this realization spread, the initial terror among humans began to mix with confusion and even amusement. In London, a Sarlaxian soldier tried to lift a car to show off his strength, only to fail miserably. In Tokyo, another alien attempted to outrun a group of humans, only to find himself panting and out of breath after just a few steps. Back in New York, Admiral Zork was furious. "Activate the gravity compensators," he shouted into his communicator. But nothing happened. The devices that were supposed to adjust for different planetary conditions had failed, overwhelmed by Earth's unexpectedly strong gravitational pull. Meanwhile, in the secret underground base, General Johnson was quickly assessing the situation. "Mr. President," she said, a hint of hope in her voice, "it looks like these aliens aren't as invincible as they thought. Earth's gravity is their weakness." President Rodriguez nodded, a determined look on her face. "Then that's our advantage. Get word out to all our forces. We fight back, but smart. Let's use their weakness against them." As the day wore on, the initial shock of the invasion gave way to a growing sense of resistance. In cities around the world, humans began to realize that these aliens, despite their advanced technology, were struggling in Earth's environment. John Smith found himself swept up in the growing resistance. He joined a group of New Yorkers who were using everyday objects, ropes, nets, even rolls of duct tape, to trap the clumsy aliens. Their superior strength meant little when they could barely move without stumbling. By nightfall, the situation had changed dramatically. What was supposed to be a quick and easy conquest for the Sarlaxians had turned into a humiliating disaster. Admiral Zork, panting and sweating, finally gave the order to retreat to the ships. "This isn't over, humans," he growled as he was helped back to his vessel by two equally exhausted soldiers. "We'll be back, and next time, we'll be ready for your gravity," John suggested helpfully, unable to hide a grin. Zork glared at him before the ship's doors closed. As the alien vessels began to lift off, a cheer went up from the crowds below. It was just the first day, and the war was far from over, but humanity had won the first round. In the White House, President Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. "Well done, everyone," she said to her team. "But this is just the beginning. We need to prepare for what comes next." As night fell over a changed Earth, people everywhere shared the same thought. The aliens may have believed humans were inferior, but they had a lot to learn about underestimating Earth and its inhabitants. The sun rose on a changed Earth. The alien ships hovered high in the atmosphere, a constant reminder of the threat looming over humanity. But on the ground, a new spirit was taking hold. In New York City, John Smith woke up early. The streets were busy, but not with the usual morning rush. People were gathering in parks and squares, sharing information and making plans. John joined a group in Central Park. "We need to be ready for when they come back," a woman was saying. She introduced herself as Maria, a former military officer. "They'll try to adapt to our gravity. We need to be smarter and faster." All over the world, similar scenes were playing out. Humanity was coming together, determined to fight back. In Washington, D.C., President Rodriguez called an emergency meeting. General Johnson stood at a large screen, pointing to satellite images of the alien ships. "They're regrouping, Madam President," she said. "But they're not leaving. We think they're trying to figure out how to deal with our gravity." Dr. Emily Chen, the physicist John had met in Times Square, had been brought in to advise. She stepped forward, her eyes bright with excitement. "We've been studying the alien technology we captured yesterday," she said. "It's advanced, but it's not magic. We can understand it, and maybe even use it against them." President Rodriguez nodded. "What do you suggest, Dr. Chen?" "Guerrilla tactics," Dr. Chen replied. "Hit-and-run attacks. Use our knowledge of Earth's terrain and gravity to our advantage. And most importantly, we need to capture more of their tech." The president turned to General Johnson. "Make it happen. Coordinate with all our allies. We're not just defending anymore. We're fighting back." Meanwhile, on the alien mothership, Admiral Zork was furious. He paced back and forth, his heavy steps making the floor vibrate. "How could we be so unprepared?" he shouted at his officers. "A simple thing like gravity, and it brought our mighty army to its knees." One of the younger officers spoke up. "Sir, we've been analyzing the data. Earth's gravity is 1.5 times stronger than what we're used to. Our bodies simply aren't adapted to it." Zork growled. "Then we'll adapt. Increase the power to our exosuits. Modify our weapons. I want solutions, not excuses." As the aliens worked on their plans, humanity was already putting theirs into action. In cities around the world, people were using their knowledge of the local environment to set traps for the aliens. In Paris, the narrow streets of Montmartre became a maze designed to confuse and tire out the gravity-challenged invaders. In Rio de Janeiro, the steep hills were turned into natural obstacles, with defenders ready to push boulders down on any alien foolish enough to try climbing. John Smith found himself working with a team in New York, rigging up pulley systems in tall buildings. "If they can't handle our gravity," he explained to the group, "imagine how they'll feel when we yank them up 50 floors in seconds." The first test of humanity's new tactics came 3 days after the initial invasion. A squad of Tarlaxian soldiers, equipped with upgraded exosuits, landed in London. At first, they moved confidently, their new gear compensating for Earth's gravity. But they had barely made it past Big Ben when the trap was sprung. Hidden speakers blasted ultra-low frequency sounds, disrupting the aliens' balance. As they stumbled, a group of humans emerged from hiding, using simple tools like nets and bolas to entangle the confused invaders. Within minutes, the entire squad was captured, their advanced weapons and exosuits now in human hands. Similar scenes played out in other cities. The aliens, still struggling with Earth's gravity even with their upgrades, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Humanity's superior knowledge of their own planet was proving to be a decisive advantage. As news of these victories spread, hope began to grow. Humanity was not just surviving. They were fighting back and winning. In the White House, President Rodriguez received the reports with cautious optimism. "We've won some battles," she told her advisors, "but the war is far from over. We need to keep pushing, keep innovating. Dr. Chen nodded in agreement. Every piece of alien tech we capture brings us closer to understanding their weaknesses. We're learning faster than they can adapt. As night fell, John Smith stood on the roof of his apartment building, looking up at the alien ships still visible in the sky. Despite the danger, he felt a sense of pride and determination. They thought we were weak, he said to himself, but they're learning the hard way. Earth isn't just our planet. It's our strength. The battle for Earth was far from over, but humanity had found its resilience. The aliens had brought war to Earth, but they were about to learn that humans don't give up their home without a fight. 2 weeks had passed since the initial invasion, and the situation on Earth had reached a tense stalemate. The Carlaxian ships still loomed in the sky, but their ground attacks had become less frequent and more cautious. In the alien mothership, Admiral Zork paced nervously. His once proud posture was now slightly hunched, a sign of the constant strain Earth's gravity put on his body even in the ship. "Status report," he barked at his science officer. The officer, looking equally uncomfortable, brought up a holographic display. "Sir, we've made some progress with our gravity adaptation technology. Our new exosuits can now compensate for about 70% of Earth's extra gravity." Zork frowned. "Not good enough. What about our weapons? We've managed to modify them for easier use in Earth's gravity, but they're still not as effective as they should be." Zork slammed his fist on a nearby console, wincing at the impact. "We're the mighty Sarlaxian Empire. How can a simple thing like gravity be defeating us?" Meanwhile, on Earth, humans were making their own progress. In a secret lab beneath New York City, Dr. Emily Chen worked tirelessly with a team of scientists, studying captured alien technology. John Smith, now working as a liaison between the scientific team and the civilian resistance, entered the lab. "Any breakthroughs, Dr. Chen?" Emily looked up from a dismantled alien exosuit, her eyes bright with excitement. "We've cracked their gravity compensation tech, John. We can now build devices that can increase or decrease the effects of gravity in a localized area." John's eyes widened. "That's amazing. How can we use this?" "We're working on portable devices for our soldiers," Emily explained. "Imagine being able to make the aliens feel even heavier, while our people move normally." As they discussed the new technology, an alarm blared through the lab. "Alien activity detected in Central Park," a voice announced over the intercom. John and Emily rushed to the surface. In Central Park, a group of Sarlaxian soldiers had landed, wearing new, sleeker exosuits. They moved more smoothly than before, though still not as gracefully as they had on their home planet. The human resistance, led by Maria, the former military officer, was already in action. They used the park's terrain to their advantage, forcing the aliens into areas with thick tree cover or uneven ground. John activated his communicator. "They've improved their suits," he reported to the command center, "but they're still struggling." Suddenly, one of the aliens broke away from the group, heading straight for John and Emily. But instead of attacking, the alien raised its hands in a universal gesture of surrender. "Please," the alien said, its voice translator crackling. "Help me. I don't want to fight anymore." John and Emily exchanged shocked glances. This was unexpected. Back on the mothership, Admiral Zork received the news of the deserter with rage. "Treason," he roared. "Send down more troops. We'll crush these humans, and any weak-minded fools who sympathize with them." But Zork's orders were met with hesitation. Many Sarlaxian soldiers had begun to question the wisdom of this invasion. Earth's gravity was taking a toll on their bodies and morale. On Earth, the situation grew more complex. The captured alien, who called himself Klex, began sharing valuable information with the humans. "Our leaders didn't tell us the truth about Earth," Klex explained to a stunned room of human officials and scientists. "They said you were primitive, easy to conquer, but your adaptation to this gravity, your resilience, it's remarkable." President Rodriguez, listening via secure video link, leaned forward. Are there others like you, Klex? Other aliens who don't want to fight? Klex nodded. Many are questioning this war, but they're afraid of Admiral Zork. As news of Klex's defection spread among the Tarlaxian ranks, more aliens began to secretly reach out to humans. Some offered information, others asked for asylum. The human resistance found itself facing a moral dilemma. These aliens were still invaders, but they were also individuals capable of change. John, walking through the streets of New York, noticed the shift in atmosphere. Posters depicting aliens as monsters were being replaced by more nuanced messages. Judge by actions, not appearance. Read one. But not everyone was ready to trust. Maria, the resistance leader, voiced her concerns during a strategy meeting. What if it's a trick? A way to infiltrate our defenses? The debate raged on, mirroring discussions happening all over the world. The line between friend and foe was blurring. As the sun set on another tense day, John stood on a rooftop, watching the alien ships in the darkening sky. Next to him stood Klex, the defected alien. "Your world is beautiful," Klex said, his voice filled with wonder. "I wish we had come here in peace." John nodded. It's not too late to change things. In that moment, despite the looming threat, a spark of hope flickered. The war had taken an unexpected turn, and the future, though uncertain, held new possibilities. The battle for Earth continued, but it was no longer just about victory or defeat. It had become a struggle for understanding, adaptation, and the potential for peace in the face of profound differences. A month had passed since the Tarlaxian invasion began. The constant threat of alien attacks had become a part of daily life on Earth. But today was different. There was an energy in the air, a sense that something big was about to happen. In New York City, John Smith woke up early, his heart racing with anticipation. Today was the day they would test their new secret weapon. He quickly got dressed and headed to the underground lab. Dr. Emily Chen was already there, working on a device that looked like a mix between a backpack and a high-tech vest. "Morning, John," she said, not looking up from her work. "Ready for the big day?" John nodded, his eyes fixed on the device. "Is that it? The gravity manipulator?" Emily smiled proudly. "Yes, we've combined our gravity control technology with the alien exosuits. This should allow our soldiers to move freely while increasing the gravitational pull on the aliens." Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., President Rodriguez was in a tense meeting with military leaders from around the world. General Johnson stood at the front of the room, pointing to a map covered in red and blue markers. "The Tarlaxians are planning a major offensive," she explained. "Our intel suggests they're going to attack multiple cities simultaneously. They think their new adaptive tech will give them the upper hand." President Rodriguez leaned forward. "But we're ready for them, aren't we?" General Johnson nodded. "Yes, Madam President. Operation Earth Force is in place. We have gravity manipulator units stationed in every major city. It's time to show these aliens what humans are really capable of." As if on cue, alarms started blaring. The Tarlaxian fleet was on the move. In the alien mothership, Admiral Zork addressed his troops. He looked tired, the strain of the past month visible on his face. "Today, we end this war," he said, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "We will show these humans the true might of the Tarlaxian Empire." But as the alien ships descended towards Earth's major cities, they were met with an unexpected sight. Instead of panicking crowds, they saw organized groups of humans, each wearing strange backpack-like devices. In New York's Central Park, John stood with a group of resistance fighters, all equipped with gravity manipulators. As the alien ships approached, he took a deep breath and activated his device. Suddenly, the descending Tarlaxians faltered in midair. Their movements became sluggish, as if they were trying to swim through syrup. Many crashed to the ground, unable to control their landings. "It's working," John shouted, his voice filled with excitement and disbelief. Similar scenes played out in cities around the world. In London, Paris, Tokyo, and countless other locations, humans with gravity manipulators turned the tables on the invaders. The Carlaxians, already struggling with Earth's natural gravity, found themselves completely overwhelmed. Their advanced weapons and exosuits, designed to compensate for Earth's gravity, were now useless against the artificially increased gravitational pull. In Moscow's Red Square, a squad of Carlaxian soldiers surrendered en masse, unable to even lift their weapons. In Rio de Janeiro, aliens attempting to scale Sugarloaf Mountain found themselves pinned to the ground, while human defenders easily climbed past them. Back in New York, John and his team pushed forward, using their newfound advantage to capture alien technology and secure key positions. As they advanced, John noticed something surprising. Some of the aliens were deliberately avoiding conflict, almost as if they were looking for a chance to surrender. On the mothership, Admiral Zork watched in horror as reports of defeats poured in from around the globe. "Impossible," he roared, slamming his fist on a console. How could they have developed such technology so quickly? But even as Zork raged, dissent was spreading through the Carlaxian ranks. Many soldiers, demoralized by the constant struggle against Earth's gravity and impressed by human ingenuity, were beginning to question the wisdom of this war. As the day wore on, it became clear that this was more than just a battle. It was a turning point in the war. Humanity, once on the defensive, was now firmly in control. In Washington, D.C., President Rodriguez addressed the nation and the world. "Today, we have shown that humanity will not bow to tyranny, no matter where it comes from," she said, her voice filled with pride. "But let us remember that our strength lies not just in our ability to fight, but in our capacity for understanding and peace." As night fell, John stood on a rooftop, watching the Carlaxian ships retreat into the upper atmosphere. Next to him, Dr. Chen was already working on a tablet, analyzing data from the day's events. "We did it, Emily," John said, still hardly able to believe it. "We actually did it." Emily looked up from her tablet, a mix of excitement and determination in her eyes. "We did. But this is just the beginning, John. The real challenge now is figuring out what comes next." As the stars began to appear in the sky, John nodded, understanding the weight of her words. They had won a great victory, but the future remained uncertain. Would there be peace, or would the Carlaxians return, more prepared than ever? One thing was clear: Earth and humanity would never be the same again. The days following humanity's major victory were filled with a mix of celebration and tension. People around the world watched the skies, waiting to see what the Carlaxians would do next. In New York City, John Smith stood in Times Square, looking up at the giant screens. They all showed the same thing: Carlaxian ships slowly moving away from Earth. "They're really leaving," a voice said beside him. John turned to see Dr. Emily Chen, her eyes fixed on the screens. "Do you think it's over?" John asked. Emily shook her head. "I doubt it. This is probably just a tactical retreat. They'll be back, and next time, they'll be more prepared." Meanwhile, in the White House Situation Room, President Rodriguez was in a video conference with world leaders. The mood was cautiously optimistic. "The aliens are retreating from all major cities," General Johnson reported. "Our gravity manipulation technology caught them completely off guard." The British Prime Minister spoke up. "But what's to stop them from coming back with better countermeasures?" President Rodriguez leaned forward. "That's why we need to act now. We've captured a significant amount of alien technology. If we can reverse engineer it, we might be able to take the fight to them." In orbit around Earth, the Carlaxian fleet was in disarray. Admiral Zork stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as his ships limped away from the blue planet that had caused them so much trouble. "Status report," he growled, his voice filled with barely contained rage. A junior officer stepped forward nervously. "Sir, we've lost 30% of our ground forces. Another 25% are unaccounted for, possibly captured or defected." Zork's eyes narrowed at the word defected. And our ships. Most are operational, but our gravity compensation systems are severely strained. We need time to regroup and repair. Zork slammed his fist on a nearby console. Prepare a transmission to the Sarlaxian High Command. We need reinforcements. Back on Earth, the human resistance was busy. In Central Park, John and a team of volunteers were helping to dismantle an abandoned Sarlaxian outpost. As they worked, John noticed a group of aliens being escorted by human soldiers. They weren't in chains, but they weren't free either. Prisoners, John asked Maria, who was overseeing the operation. Maria shook her head. Not exactly. They're defectors. They've asked for asylum. John's eyes widened. That many? What are we going to do with them? Before Maria could answer, their radios crackled to life. All units, be advised. We're picking up a transmission from the alien fleet, patching it through now. Admiral Zork's face appeared on every screen and device capable of receiving the signal. He looked haggard, but his eyes burned with determination. People of Earth, he began, his voice translated into every major language. You have won this battle, but the war is far from over. The full might of the Sarlaxian Empire will descend upon your world. Your gravity tricks won't save you next time. As Zork continued his threats, John noticed something odd. The alien defectors weren't scared. They looked embarrassed, almost ashamed of their leader's words. One of them, who John recognized as Klex, stepped forward. Please, he said, addressing the humans around him. Not all of us agree with Admiral Zork. Many of us have seen the error of our ways. We want peace. The implications of Klex's words spread quickly. Within hours, debates were raging around the world. What should be done with the alien defectors? Could they be trusted? And more importantly, how should Earth prepare for the Sarlaxians' return? In her lab, Dr. Chen was already hard at work. John, look at this, she said, pointing to a holographic display. I've been analyzing the alien ship movements. They're not just retreating. They're taking up defensive positions around the moon. John frowned. Why? What's so important about the moon? Emily's eyes sparkled with excitement. I don't know, but I intend to find out. And John, I think it's time we took our gravity manipulation technology to the next level. As night fell, President Rodriguez addressed the world. Today, we have shown that humanity will not fall easily. But our work is not done. We must prepare for the challenges ahead, and perhaps find a way to turn enemies into friends. Her words echoed what many were feeling. A mix of pride in their victory, determination to face future threats, and a glimmer of hope for a peaceful resolution. In space, as Earth grew smaller in the viewport, Admiral Zork brooded in his quarters. He had underestimated these humans once. He wouldn't make that mistake again. The battle for Earth was over, but the war for the solar system was just beginning. And this time, humanity wouldn't be caught unprepared. 6 months had passed since the Sarlaxian retreat. Earth had changed in ways no one could have imagined before the invasion. The sky, once empty save for birds and planes, now held the glint of orbital defense platforms and the distant shapes of human-crewed spaceships. In New York City, John Smith walked through the streets, marveling at how quickly things had returned to a new kind of normal. Alien technology had been integrated into everyday life. Gravity manipulation devices helped construction workers lift heavy loads, while modified Sarlaxian communication tech allowed people to have real-time holographic conversations across the globe. John's destination was a newly constructed building, the Earth Sarlaxian Cooperation Center. Inside, he found Dr. Emily Chen working alongside several aliens, including Klex. John, Emily called out, waving him over. Come look at this. On a large holographic display, John saw a map of the solar system. Earth was at the center, surrounded by a network of stations and ships extending all the way to the outer planets. Is this our defense network? John asked, amazed at how far humanity had come in such a short time. Klex shook his head, a gesture he had learned from humans, not just defense. It's a detection grid. We've combined Earth's radio telescope technology with Sarlaxian long-range sensors. We'll be able to see any incoming ships long before they reach the solar system. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., President Rodriguez was in a historic meeting. Seated across from her was not just the leaders of Earth's nations, but also representatives from a dozen alien races. The Galactic Council has recognized Earth as a major power, an alien diplomat was saying. His skin was a deep purple, and he had 4 eyes that blinked in sequence. Your defeat of the Sarlaxian invasion force has sent shockwaves through the galaxy. President Rodriguez leaned forward. And what of the Sarlaxian Empire? Will they try to attack us again? Another alien, this one with metallic scales, spoke up. The Empire is in turmoil. Admiral Zork's failure has led to widespread reforms. Many worlds under Sarlaxian control are now seeking independence. The president nodded, taking in this information. And where does Earth stand in all of this? The purple alien smiled, or at least made a gesture that seemed like a smile. That, Madam President, is up to you. The galaxy is watching. Will Earth use its newfound strength to seek revenge or to foster peace? As this meeting was taking place, far out in the asteroid belt, a joint human-Sarlaxian mining operation was underway. Humans in gravity manipulation suits worked alongside Sarlaxian defectors, extracting rare minerals that would fuel Earth's growing space program. One of the human miners, Maria, the former resistance leader, floated up to a Sarlaxian colleague. "Hey, Zax, how are you holding up in microgravity?" Zax let out a rumbling laugh. "Much better than Earth gravity, that's for sure. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad we failed to conquer your world. Working together like this, it feels right." Back on Earth, in Central Park, a statue was being unveiled. It depicted a human and a Sarlaxian standing side by side, looking up at the stars. John and Emily stood in the crowd, watching as the cover was pulled away. "It's hard to believe how much has changed," John said, shaking his head in wonder. Emily nodded. "And we're just getting started. The gravity manipulation tech we developed, we think we can use it for faster-than-light travel. Imagine, John, we could be the ones exploring the galaxy next." As night fell, people around the world gathered to watch a special broadcast. On screens everywhere, they saw a sight that would have been unthinkable a year ago. A human ship, launching from the moon, heading out into deep space. President Rodriguez's voice came over the broadcast. "Today, we take our first steps into the wider galaxy. We go not as conquerors, but as explorers and peacekeepers. The challenges we faced have made us stronger, but also wiser. We have learned that our greatest strength lies not in our ability to fight, but in our capacity to adapt, to learn, and to forge connections even with those who were once our enemies." As the ship disappeared into the starry expanse, John looked up at the night sky. The stars no longer seemed distant and unreachable. They were a promise, a new frontier. "You know," he said to Emily, "when the aliens first arrived, they thought we were inferior because we lived on a high-gravity world. They saw it as a weakness." Emily nodded, understanding where he was going. "But it was that very weakness that made us strong. Our struggle against gravity made us adaptable, resilient." John smiled. "Exactly. We turned our greatest challenge into our greatest strength. And now the galaxy is waiting for us," Emily finished. As Earth celebrated its new place in the galactic community, the message was clear. Humanity had not just survived its trial by fire. It had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to take its place among the stars. The future was bright, full of challenges and opportunities, and humanity, with its newfound allies, was ready to face whatever the universe had in store.